Here at Behind the Mask, we acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the original storytellers and custodians of the land on which we live and meet today. Behind the Mask is a podcast about sharing authentic stories. And in continuing that legacy of storytelling, we acknowledge that we're honouring and celebrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' traditions, customs and stories. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
With blowjobs, what you want to really think about the most is rhythm. You're going to do a little combo deal with the mouth and the hand. And I like to do 1, 2, 3, and then deep. 1, 2, 3, and then deep.
And that's the rhythm.
That's the magic sequence.
If we think about technology as a tool that allows us to do a thing, to go from A to B, lube is, you can't take away that this is the most powerful sex tech for pleasure.
The anus is not self-lubricating. As we've spoken about before, the vagina is self-lubricating, but it's not always completely lubricated all the time for as long as you want. And so that's why lube is amazing for all types of sex, but it is essential. It's a non-negotiable when it comes to anal sex.
Can or will an AI relationship ever enable one to feel the heart connection that two humans can feel when they're intertwined?
Yes, still people are experiencing this visceral, what we call cyber heartbreak. Now, it doesn't mean that it's really heartbreak, but there's a sense of like, yes, you can totally fall in love with an AI.
I'm Josh Pitterman and welcome to Season 3 of the Behind the Mask podcast. This is set to be our most spicy, controversial and thought-provoking season yet. We'll be taking a dive into the esoteric, the taboo and some of the most pressing issues that profoundly affect us all. We'll hear from specialists in the areas of sex, war, business, psychedelics, homelessness, mental health, and more. And as always, they'll open up with their heart stories, as well as the tools and wisdoms they've used to find healing, inspiration, meaning, and purpose in life. Get ready to be inspired once again by the depths of the human experience. It's time to go behind the mask. Between singing, writing, podcasting, presenting, coaching, gym, Pilates, yoga, breathwork, meditation, ice bath, saunas, staying well can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, Wanderlust Mushroom Multis over here is a craft blend of 7 mushrooms, including organic reishi, turkey tail, and shiitake mushroom, rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. Reishi supports a healthy immune system and may help relieve coughs, while its antioxidant properties work to reduce free radicals. This hero mushroom is also used traditionally to help support vitality and replenish qi. With 1 capsule a day, it's a simple way to add functional mushrooms into your wellness routine. Clean and potent with minimal fillers, you can find Wanderlust Mushroom Multi at your local Chemist Warehouse or order it online now. Today, I'm joined by 2 epic women who work prolifically in the world of sex. No, it's not what you're thinking. Bryony Cole is the founder of the S3X Tech School. She's the host of the Future of S3X podcast. She's been featured in Vogue, Wired, even the New York Times. The New York Times, Bryony.
The New York
That's
Times.
unbelievable.
A little flex there.
Oh, what a flex. Pick up that ticket. Eleanor Hadley is a certified sex educator, coach, presenter, and writer. She's all about elevating our intimacy, lust and libido, tongue tips. I'm so looking forward to learning lots today. I'm sure you are too. It's time to go behind the mask on all things sex. Welcome, ladies.
Woo! Thank you.
Woo! I love you got a woo. I think we're going to get a few. Woo.
Yeah. We need that.
We definitely
as our
need
backing
that.
track.
Can we have that as our backing track, Braden, for this whole episode? Anytime we go from segment to segment, we just need a little bit of salt and pepper.
The whole album.
Oh, God. Brian, I'm going to kick off with you. I want to get some frameworks here.
Let's do
because what is sex tech? What is sex technology?
Okay, first of all, what do you think it is? What's the first thing that comes to mind when I say sex tech?
A lot of things. That's why AI comes to mind. Sex toys comes to mind. Like cyber, like security and sex, like trafficking and all sorts. Like there's so many things that come to mind.
I should have asked you. You already know.
But I like.
really,
there's lots of things that can
there
come.
Are.
Because it's like, you tell me. You're the one who's.
No, you're spot on.
Yeah,
usually, and I can't even go. She'll know. But usually, when I say sex tech, people are like, oh, sex robots. That's what you're talking about when you think sex and tech.
Yeah.
As you pointed out, it's so much more. There are so many different things that make up sex tech, and the way I like to explain it is sexuality and technology.
Yep.
And where those two intersect, or that Venn diagram. And there's so many different ways. Cybersecurity, we think of all the tech that you started with, artificial intelligence, robotics, websites, apps, dildos, tools. And then how does that intersect with sexuality? Yes, the good stuff like the sex toys, but also education, health, crime and violence reporting, medicine, identity, anything we can put in that sexuality bucket. And how do we use technology for that, for either for good or bad? And it's every time I get asked this in an interview, I go, it's a $120 billion market. No, it's a $60 trillion market. No, today there's just all these reports, and every single week it's a different number about what this market is actually worth. First of all, because it's so hard to measure. What is sex tech? It's all these different things, but also because the technology is moving so fast. So these valuations are just like, it's just the biggest, most highest valued market you've probably never heard of.
Really?
Mm.
So what is the Sex Tech School?
So the Sex Tech School is where Josh has an experience. Maybe it's an amazing one, bing. Maybe it's a terrible one, oh no, and has this idea born from this experience. I can make this better, or I need to replicate this. Now, that may be that you had a crappy sex education. Maybe you need to improve STI testing, or there's lots of shame around that. How can I use technology to improve this experience? So people come to Sex Tech School with an idea. I'm going to build an app. I'm going to build a website. At the moment, we've got someone that's building VR holograms for sex education for people with intellectual disabilities to provide a different format of sex education that's private, but also isn't, if you can't, you're not reading or you have some sort of intellectual issues. So anything like that. So people are coming with ideas, they spend 6 weeks with us and they learn the ropes of sex tech. Because if you're building a business in that space, it's very specific. There's all sorts of issues that Eleanor would be familiar with, getting shut off Instagram, getting booted off, can't advertise, trying to raise money, trying to talk to people about it, trying to find consumers. Where do I build something to do with sex where I won't, encounter some troubles with manufacturers that go, oh no, we can't build that. So we take them through the ropes of that.
Get shadow banned. Yeah.
Censored. I've lost track.
Yeah,
with the amount of times I get kicked off.
This show got shadow banned from the Instagram after an episode with Grace Tame where she was talking about sexual abuse that she had, and she refers to her vagina, and so. Yeah. Since then, it's like Instagram's like, no, no one's allowed to see your content because we're sharing a really important story. Yeah, it's like
it's hacking the algorithm. Yeah, not really. It's just is about changes.
I mean, that's probably about changing some people's relationship with what they deem as taboo subject or whatever, but which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But wow, it's
really big.
A massive space.
Yeah, it's huge. And there's so many different ways that you can come at it. And so, but building a business in the space, it's like building a vice business. There's all these rules and regulations. So at the end of the day, the 500 people that have come through Sex Tech School have found similar ways to navigate these hurdles, these challenges of raising money, talking on Instagram about a product, finding their consumers, and then they also find community and people that are like, yeah, you know what? I love sex tech too, and I've got a cool idea. And I think that's probably the big thing people get out of it that work in this space is I'm not alone. Just like the banner topic of sex, right? Where we all feel I'm pretty alone in this.
Yeah. And we will so get to it. It makes a lot of sense. What an amazing field to work in.
Yeah.
How does one find their way into that field? Like, what is your journey into that? Sorry, Eleanor, we're gonna come to you in
No,
just a second.
I'm fascinated.
So fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's always, you look back and you go, oh yeah, this all adds up. But I think it's just a series of different moments, happenstance, in time, opportunities, but also, I always tell the professional story, which is like, I was working for Microsoft in these big tech organizations, got kind of disillusioned with having 5 white dudes breathe down my neck every time I tried to send out an email and thought, how do I change careers?
Like 5 white dudes breathing down my neck. Sex tech.
Yeah, sex. Yeah. That's the story. And that's the personal story. So, no, let me not get cancelled. No, but so I think that makes sense from the tech perspective. Is I was just sort of like, well, there's got to be more interesting tech than talking about the future of work. I don't see a place for me in that. I'd always done creative things. And so I felt that was natural. And I'd been doing this Future of Work project. I then went and did a Future of Nightlife project. And I was like, hang on, this is a bit more interesting. We're talking about technology and nightlife. I met these guys that were creating, and this is like 2016, creating VR things where you could put on, the idea was you would stay at home, which now I'm like, this is kind of really coming true. You would stay at home, you would put on your headset, and you would be in a hot tub with supermodels. And the idea was to counteract, like, you don't have to date. You can just hang out with supermodels in a hot tub. And I found that, I think the immediate reaction that you're having is like, that's kind of cringe and repulsive. I also found it so interesting, an insight into like how people were behaving and how people were already just like, how can we use technology to be more intimate or do? And I thought, here's a seed of an idea. The personal story is, I grew up in Australia, pretty average sex education, not fantastic, not terrible, but like condom on a banana level, like didn't know relationship education, no idea about what's healthy, all that was forgotten. And also in the same boat of having like average, 3 out of 10 sex education, I also went to a school where it was like, you should be small as a woman. Be small in voice, be small in body, don't take up too much space. And I think, and that followed me right through high school. I got detentions for eating ice cream in the street and it was seen to be unladylike, through to university where it was like, you've got to be small in your body. And so I always felt like I was kind of like pushing this thing down.
Diminishing.
This real like thing that wanted to be naughty and do creative things and be really big and take up all this space. And so by the time 33 rolled around and I was at Microsoft tapping away on the keyboard and I had that moment where I was just like, is this it? Like, is this what I've been doing? Is this like where this is all going? And I could see very distinctly there was this path of like, yes, rise up the ranks, climb up the corporate ladder, enjoy your job in New York. And that's the pathway. The other one was go do something, go be loud, go take up space, like go and explore things that are a bit different and off the beaten track. And so, as I was wading through these different jobs and looking, future of nightlife, maybe I could use my tech career. And then this, these guys that were creating holograms, I thought, no, there's something in this. This is interesting. I like this. Sex tech. And put those two things in and decided I'm going to interview 100 people that know anything about anything to do with sexuality and technology. And that's sort of where this germ or seed of an idea came from of like, future of sex, way better than future of work.
Were you also having 3 out of 10 sex?
I don't, probably, now that I look back, but it wasn't that I don't even think I knew
like when you're so diminished and like was. You're not like, because to have any sort of sex, and Eleanor, you're going to speak much more to this than I can because you're the expert and I'm just a guy who's had some sex. Like when you're
love it,
when you're diminishing yourself or you're playing small and not the full version of yourself, how can you fully express, and therefore how can you fully meet yourself in your most desirable and most giving sexual self if you're so diminished by the system?
Oh, I had that those eyes weren't even open. I had no idea. Yeah. It was all, for me, the sex part was all a performance anyway. I didn't even, that wasn't, I was just like,
the sex mask.
The sex mask.
Yeah, well, different kind of sex mask, but like a
not
metaphorical
the fun ones.
No, not the fun ones.
But that, I think that's sort of how you fool yourself, right? Is you kind of do the work that you really probably need to do. And through those interviews and through meeting the women of sex tech in New York, which was that perfect happenstance of here's this community of 40 women founders that are building different sex tech, just so happened to be in the city that I was living in. Through that, I'd kind of, through this intellectual lens, I actually discovered things that were much more about myself, and much more about, it doesn't have to be a performance. Sex toys, that's a thing that I didn't even consider because we never even got told about that other than it was shameful or go to Club X, but don't let anyone see you, and put this not body safe materials in your body, all that sort of stuff. So my curiosity with the mask of this is just an intellectual pursuit actually led to deep, deep self-discovery, not just sexually, but just about intimacy and about how we relate with the world.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. There's so much in there, and then we're going to pull on all those threads because there's just so much in there.
You got that out.
Oh,
there you go.
I just let you speak and you had so much just wonderful stuff to share. Eleanor, can you tell me what the role of a sex coach or a sex educator is?
Yeah, absolutely. So a sex educator is someone who educates you about sexuality. And as a coach, I work one-on-one with clients or in courses to help people feel more connected to their sexuality, to give themselves permission to actually be a sexual being, to feel comfortable in their sexuality, owning it, having better conversations, communication with their partners, better relationships, just all over better intimacy. I think it's really important to prioritize your pleasure, and a lot of the people that come to me don't know how to do that and don't feel that they're allowed to do that.
So they're the clients that you typically see, people who don't know how to involve themselves in their own pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they want to expand it. They know that there's more available, more pleasure that is possible, but they're not quite sure how to get there themselves. Or they recognize I've got some deep-seated shame going on. There's a lot of repression. A lot of my sexuality has been suppressed and I want to explore it, but they don't know how. So that's kind of what I sort of hold their hand and take them on that journey and explore that.
Without actually being there in the room with them while they're exploring.
Yeah, a lot of people think that a sex coach is someone that is standing in the corner in a referee outfit with a whistle. They're no, wrong hole, faster, slower, side to side. Not quite.
It's just take a pause. Time out. What you were doing there.
Foul goal.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly it. I'm sure that there's a place for that. That could be a really interesting thing. But no, I talk with my clients and I share with them how they can explore their own bodies through embodiment, through partner practices, through a lot of self-inquiry. So I always start with the self-inquiry. I know that's a big thing that you are interested in as well. And I think that's where everything has to start before you start bringing in all of the sex tech and all of the tools.
Extrinsic.
Exactly. I think of it like a cake. So if you have made this amazing cake, and you're putting in all of the ingredients and someone has labeled the sugar and it actually is salt, but it has a sugar label on it and you pour that in. And so you make this cake and you think it's going to be amazing. You've been given the recipe by someone else. And as you're making the cakes, some people kind of come along and they put in all of their little beliefs, or maybe it's like pickles or something. They throw all these things into your batter and you're like, oh, okay, I don't know. And then you go over to your oven and you don't know how to use this oven. You've never used it before, but you just kind of play around with the knobs, right? The oven represents your body. You put this cake in and you do the best that you can with what you've been given and what people have kind of given you along the way. And then you kind of come out and you might be like, oh, this cake isn't very, very nice. It's a little bit salty. It's not great,
not great.
But I'll do the best that I can. And then you go, all right, I'm going to put a whole bunch of icing and sprinkles and glitter all over that. And that represents the sex toys and the games and the sex parties and all of that. And those things are amazing. But if you don't go back and figure out why there's pickles in your cake, you're not going to really have the full enjoyment that could come from all of the icing, right? You've got to go back and explore. And so that's where the self-inquiry part comes in.
How did you find your way into this role as a sex coach and educator?
Yeah, again, it's something that I didn't really set out to become a sex coach.
Oh, I don't know. Anyone's at like 16. What are you going to do? Like it's year 11. You're going
Yeah, they do.
You reckon?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's more common now.
I love that. That's more common now.
Several years ago, it wasn't really on the radar
Can you
at
imagine
all.
going to your careers counsellor and going,
I want to teach about sex. They're doing a terrible job. I had to put a condom on a banana. That was
replace my geography teacher.
So I started out, I guess the journey sort of starts when I first did my first pole dancing class years and years ago. I think I was about 18 when I went along to this pole dancing studio here in Melbourne, actually. And I just fell in love with it. I thought it was so fun. It was Pole Divas, yeah.
Pole Divas.
Yes.
You
been to Pole Divas?
I know exactly what Pole Divas is. Yeah.
So it was a Pole Divas. I ended up just falling so in love with pole, and I went through all the levels. I ended up buying a studio, Paran.
What?
Yeah, that was mine for 4 years. From I think 2014
Next to Humming Puppy?
to 18, yeah. That was like, if you went to Humming Puppy, you might have seen me on the giant poster, just like jumping on the pole. Yeah.
Yes.
With the pink shorts and the yellow top.
Yes.
That was me.
Oh my God.
Even more celebrity.
So celebrity. So celebrity. A show that I present on House of Wellness. We've got one of our hosts is doing a session at Pole Divas.
Oh.
A male host. Yes. Yeah,
Amazing.
he may have already done it. He may have given me all the lowdown on it.
Nice.
And yeah,
Great.
core.
Cool.
Yeah, all that. He's a whore for core. Yeah.
So that was my studio for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that just opened you up to your more sexual side?
Sort of, like not immediately. I first felt really, really excited to try something that was new and like a little bit kind of saucy and a little bit secretive. For ages, I said I was just doing alternative dance classes, which wasn't technically a lie. But I did that for a while, ended up buying the studio, running the studio, and observing all of my students coming in week one, really meek and mild, wearing leggings instead of the short shorts and feeling really like uncertain. By week 5, 6, they're flipping upside down, wearing 8-inch heels and tiny little booty shorts. And the confidence that they got from that was incredible. And so as I ran this studio and as I decided, I'm ready to wrap up here, I wanted to focus on the embodiment side of dance less than the performative side of dance. And I think it goes really, really like hand in hand with sexuality and the way that I teach sexuality now. I teach about embodied sexuality rather than performative sexuality, because a lot of the time we approach sexuality from this performative place. And so I sold the studio and I started my own movement practice that was all about sensuality and embodiment and kind of getting out of your head into your body. No mirrors, no performance, no right or wrong way to do it, but just kind of really feeling good in your body. Rather than focusing on what your body can do, what it looks like, it's like, how does it feel to be in it? And so that really informed everything that I do now. And I eventually kind of just followed different threads and I studied life coaching and then I specialized in sensuality and then I studied sex coaching as well. And it just kind of, it's all just followed and flowed really, really beautifully from there.
Wonderful. You both have amazing journeys into this, and a lot of it seems to be about finding that wild or primal or true natured woman within you that's sort of been suppressed potentially, like definitely, by a society that maybe doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
You guys want to speak to that, or how your feelings towards that?
Really.
Yeah, I was even thinking, gosh, it's not even a woman, it's a little girl. Like it goes back to girlhood and being just like coming into womanhood, but having to be the good girl and the pleasing and what that means and wrestling with that, because there's this whole thing of being a good girl and what a good girl means and being the golden girl at school and getting the good marks and all that sort of stuff. So I do feel for me, it was very heady. And I so understand what you're saying. You put it so beautifully of like just dropping out of your head. But for me, the gateway was through my head. It was like the only way I'd give myself permission was first to intellectually explore all these things and sort
be
of
conceptual,
break
be
out.
analytical.
Yeah. And that was sort of the excuse mode of like different path activated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel it was such a return to the real little girl that wanted to be curious and wanted to go and explore and do all those different things. And as you're moving into womanhood, my parents were so great. I remember in grade 6, we had like, I don't know if you had this at primary school, the bra brigade.
No.
And the girls that first got boobs got to join the bra brigade.
No way.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Bra brigade.
Bra brigade.
Anyway, so my mum took me to Target and I wanted like the biggest bra ever. Can you imagine? And no, I had to get like the training bra. But I remembered that was a real celebration at home. And then the next thing was my period. And I came home from school one day because I got my period early. It must have been year 7 or something. And my mum and dad were there popping the champagne and being like, congrats, you're a woman.
That's
wow.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
Most parents,
amazing.
especially dads, would be like, yeah, you deal with that, sweetheart. I'm not like.
No. And it was what was so interesting and probably why I felt like emboldened to eventually go out was at home I got to kind of, and it wasn't like, hey, go have sex, but I got to have that little girl was rewarded and, and it's okay to be curious and to explore and all that. But as soon as I stepped out of the house, there was definitely an element of fit in, be the good girl, be demure, be all these things that I had to pull back. And I think part of it for me, if I trace back, was the permission was going tens of thousands of miles away and living across the world. And then I was like, okay, I think I can shed that old skin now and find myself again.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I've kind of gone off track of the original primal thing, but it's interesting because there's just like so many layers to all of this when it comes to sex of like, and your inner self. Where does that come from as kids? Where do we learn about that? And those, how academic institutions, how your friends and family, how now the internet and how our parents really shape our sense of ourself and our sensuality and sexuality at such a young age, and then slowly figuring out, well, I'll take a bit of that, but that was bullshit. For me, I had to go so far away to then come back.
Mm.
Yeah.
I run a women's circle once a month just online with some women who've been meditating with me or learned to meditate with me over the years. And it's turned into, it was what was like once a sort of meditation thing, and now it's more of a circle. And I love to use story and mythology and poetry to help bring something to life within the circle, a conversation that sparks the conversation within. And so we're using some stories from Women Who Run with the Wolves at the moment.
Yeah.
If you know that book, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And that's what made me think about this sort of primal side, this wild woman that lives within every woman, that she's been told to be a good girl. She's been told to be pretty and cutesy and demure and perfect and, and she lives up here in the head. But really the primal, the intuitive woman, she lives in the bones. She lives right in the marrow of the bones.
Yeah.
And right down in the genitalia as well. Like that's where the Kundalini energy starts from. That's where all the energy starts from within men and women. But we're told to sort of move out of that. So it's so interesting to see how both of you guys have found a way into that more, innate, primal, wild woman within you, because she's got to be alive. Or else, like with men, they come out in other ways because you're suppressing and it needs to have a life in some other ways. With men, we often see it with, addictions and abuse and whatever, because they're not actually speaking through that wild man within them.
I think that's where embodiment really comes in. It is about getting out of your head into your body, out of what everybody else says that you should be, what society dictates you should be as a woman, as a man, as anybody. It's like connecting with yourself. And I think that, the common theme here between the two of us is that we had this kind of performative start and then embodied kind of journey. Because I think that you can only really become truly embodied once you've had that performative element, because you've growing up in the West, it's hard to avoid the performative sort of side of things. And, we could call this toxic as well. We could just call it performative. We could see it as this sort of just fitting in with culture, with society. And the more that you realize, if you do realize, and this is the problem, a lot of people don't realize, but once you get to a certain point where you're like, oh, what am I doing this for? What am I performing this for? What am I, like moaning and squealing during sex if it's not true? If it's because I'm trying to emulate porn, for example, or am I dressing in a certain way because I feel like that's the only way to get accepted, or am I acting in a certain way because that's what society will sort of celebrate me for, or like what is actually real and true for me in my body? And then everything's just so much more visceral. A lot of the clients that I've worked with, they tell me that they feel like they're numb from the neck down. They feel like they live their entire lives in their head, intellectualizing everything. And it's only when they sort of really give themselves permission to be in their bodies that things start to kind of click for them. Because a lot of the time, I think that we aren't given that permission. Society doesn't give us that permission. It wants us to be contained, wants us to be small, it wants us to be quiet and, abide by all these rules. But once you give yourself that permission, then it's just so much more real and raw,
And there's no going back then.
No.
It's almost like it's open now and there's no putting it back in the box.
Yeah, nor should there be. It's like, once you open that doorway, you don't, or once you open that door into that room, you don't step back into the hallway.
Yeah.
You just keep opening more doors into more rooms and more expanse and more veils get moved aside and it just gets bigger and broader and you go, I'm never going back to the hallway, nor am I ever going back out of the house again. Like, I just don't need to because life is so much more full and free here. This is amazing stuff, guys. I want to look at some tech stuff. Bryony, what's your favorite advancement in the
my
sex?
favourite thing to rant on, or
could be that, but just the one thing you just go, fuck, that is so special. That's such a wonderful game changer.
Lube.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Lube is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me more about why.
Well,
because I know a lot of men, and I felt like this at times where I go, oh, they bring out the lube. Oh, I'm not doing a good enough job. Oh, I'm not pleasuring this person. I'm not making them wet. I'm not.
Untrue.
Yeah. Great. So
you never have enough lube.
Never, ever have enough lube.
There's a lot of shame in lube.
Yeah.
All I'll say, we can explore all the fancy sex tech for sure. But I think if we think about technology as a tool that allows us to do a thing, to go from A to B, lube is, you can't take away that this is the most powerful sex tech for pleasure.
Yeah.
That you don't need fancy features, bells and whistles, Bluetooth connections, robots, magic hands. Well, you can have magic hands, but it's through lube, and I think it just makes the whole experience so much more enjoyable. And the issue we have of the surprise is, but everything you said, there's a lot of shame wrapped around it for men and women in that, which I defer to Eleanor because I know she will know so much more about the number one sex tech.
I'm so, so happy that you said that because I agree wholeheartedly. I am the biggest fan of lube and I won't stop singing its praises because I think that people, exactly your reaction, that is what most people feel about lube. They feel shame. They feel like, oh, I shouldn't need to use lube. There must be something wrong with me if I need to use lube. There must be something wrong with me if my partner wants to use lube. All of these things. And it couldn't be more further from the truth because the body is a really, really interesting thing. And there's something called arousal non-concordance. And arousal non-concordance is essentially where your brain and your body might be on different pages. And so you can be lubricated, wet, dripping wet, and your brain is like, I'm not horny. I'm not feeling it. Oh, wow, my body seems to be responding, but I'm not feeling it. And then vice versa. We can feel really, really mentally turned on, super mentally stimulated, really keen for sex and for penetration, and yet our vulva, our vagina can actually just be dry. And that's not, right or wrong. We have different anatomy, and some people are naturally more lubricated than others. And then we also have hormonal factors to take into account. And so there's a lot of reasons why someone would not be quite as wet as they used to be or as others. And so enter lube, it solves this problem, right? And it makes everything better. Like I just say, use lube regardless. Don't just think, oh, I'll only use it in that time that I'm not as dry as wet as I want to be. Use it all the time. It's so good. It's going to enhance it for everybody. It's going to mean that you don't have quite as much like painful friction where you could cause like little tiny tears in your most important parts. We don't want that. You've got
I've been in experiences where that's happened before.
No one wants
it's
that.
Nice. It enhances pleasure so much for everybody involved. And I just think it's the best thing ever. So
it's like the toothpaste on your toothbrush. Like just, you know, like this is a requirement.
So good to know.
Well, let's smash the taboo of it. You know, I think that's the big problem.
I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, most people's first experiences of lube are probably some strawberry tasting thing or something. And that has shame coded in it because it's like, let's make it taste good. You know, and everything else tastes bad. And
like
it's
also very cheap lolly.
Yeah, like a cherry.
But also like, oh, we need to make it taste good to make you want to go there.
Yeah.
That just creates this extra layer of shame.
Yeah.
And look, if you're into flavored lubes, all power to you. I would highly recommend that you always use a lube that says it is actively pH friendly because there's so many poor quality lubes on the market. So
the one that I have enjoyed is coconut oil.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're giving me the okay.
Well, great.
Because I was told that it's like, hey, this is a good natural version of it.
Don't use condoms and coconut oil.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do a condom.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But if
why like Eleanor gave me the face of like if you're not catching this on YouTube, she gave me the face of it was don't do that in the eyes.
No, I was there with you as well, and it's not entirely pH friendly.
Okay.
So there's lubes that are specifically formulated with a lot of science behind them to ensure that they don't cause infections. And sometimes coconut oil can irritate some people. Some people are more prone to certain types of infections. And while coconut oil is like antimicrobial and antibacterial and all these amazing things and it's natural, I'm definitely like a natural girly. But I think it's important to recognize it's not necessarily for everybody. So
okay, this is good because like I'm so here to learn. Like this is like the most curious add-on. So that's great information. We've all got a heart story to tell, don't we? The one that lives behind the many masks we wear. On this show, you get to hear those stories from our incredible guests who come on each episode and share theirs. Now it's time I shared mine. Last year was the hardest one I've faced in my life and career. There were 2 vocal surgeries, a high-speed near-death experience, and the ongoing health struggles of my father. It felt like the most appropriate time to put pen to paper. The Behind the Mask book is memoir meets self-development, an opportunity to share the wild, honest, funny, and at times very vulnerable anecdotes of a career in showbiz, intertwined with the lessons, learnings, and wisdoms I've gained along the way. I share my struggles with anxiety, imposter syndrome, health battles, eating disorders, and that feeling of not enoughness. Most importantly, I share how I moved through it. My intention is not only for you to really meet this human being beyond the many iterations of human doing, but to help you navigate your way through life with a deeper sense of self, meaning, and purpose. I truly hope you come along for the ride and grab yourself a copy. The book is available at online stores or in stores, but I recommend purchasing through the great people at Readings. Head to readings.com.au to get your copy. What sex tech advancements do you love using with your clients other than lube?
I would say something that I recommend a lot is audio erotica.
Okay.
Particularly for my female clients, it's such an interesting way to feel this sense of arousal for people who aren't turned on by traditional visual porn and don't feel comfortable with it, or it just doesn't do anything for them. Using the mind, like we know that the brain is the largest sex organ. And so if you can stimulate that and stimulate the fantasy and kind of inserting yourself into the picture, it can be so, so fun and so, so powerful. And so that's something that I recommend a lot of my clients explore.
What are your feelings? Go.
Can I extend on that now, just from the sex tech angle?
You can.
But so they're amazing audio erotic, and in the female market, it's like fan fiction and erotic fiction is such a huge market, and now with sex tech advances moved into audio, and now the next advance that I'm seeing is with co-writing these erotic fictions or these erotic audios with AI. And there's an amazing female-founded company, 3 Swedish women founded this company called PIRR, PIRR.ai. Not sponsored, but I just find them really inspiring, and you can co-create the stories as you go, and other people can share them, but, you know, you can write these stories together with an AI, which in a way, like that to me is a positive use.
Is that like a ChatGPT?
It's an app, of course.
Yeah. And are you saying, this is my fantasy, this is where I'd love to experience, and it...
Yeah, kind of like a little selection box, and then you start to write, and then
they create the audio around that.
And and I would suggest that that's where all of this is going as the AI tools become more and more, you know, cheaper to, well, not necessarily good for the environment, but cheaper to use, more accessible for audio. That's also somewhere where it's like interesting now. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? You know, with erotic audio, you can kind of go through the apps that Eleanor's talking about, and you can kind of choose scenarios. With this one, you totally customize the scenario. Yeah. And so the chances of you running into things that maybe you've never run into before are probably a little bit lower. And so that's where I think it's an interesting sort of intersection of sexuality and technology. At what point do we lose our creativity with fantasies and our imagination and our creativity, all the things that make intimacy so great if we start to totally, you know, outsource it.
Which is I feel like where some of my issues with AI and sex are, which I want to get to. And maybe we'll come back to some porn stuff that I want to talk about. But I know in your New York Times article, you sort of talk about the fact that AI relationships are just going to be the norm in a couple of years.
Yeah. You know, what I saw today, this is kind of like a little bit on
is this on
topic.
On the Uber on the way here?
This wasn't in the Uber. But I had to talk to someone about this. Okay, so it's AI called In Touch, and this is to do with relationships. So it's not to do with partners, but it's to do with if you can't call your parents, this AI will, right? And it's in this realm.
What do you mean if you can't call your parents?
Maybe your parents are elderly and they want to be called every day, and you're a busy working guy doing podcasts. You don't have time to call mum. Who
doesn't have to be responsible for the love that he has towards his parents.
Yeah. So I think...
Who can delegate that love to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it sends you transcripts of the calls, and then so you can understand what's happening in your parents' lives, elderly parents this is targeted at, for families. I think it's still in the intimacy bucket, right? It's still in this future of relationships bucket. We can extrapolate out to partners, maybe aging partners, sick partners. But I was just like, I need to talk to people about this because I don't think we realise that it already exists.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
so
and it's here.
I think it speaks to a sort of self-absorbed individualist society where I get to outsource my responsibilities as a son or a daughter for my parents to someone else so that I don't have to do the little bit of hard stuff or the little bit of uncomfortable stuff or the stuff that needs to be done rather than what I want to do. And I think we're moving more and more into that. I think porn is about that. And I've had an on and off relationship with porn, and I've had to like really move away from it. But I think that is also about an individualist relationship and about having my needs met. And it's about me, and not actually about engaging with whoever it is that you're intimate with, whatever that relationship with is, whether that's your partner or your parents or your friend or whatever, and actually playing a part in being responsible for that.
Yeah, it's like I totally agree, and I feel like
that was a rant. Sorry,
no, because
we're on a podcast.
I think it totally ties into what Eleanor's been speaking about too, because yes, it's all about me, and outsourcing anything emotionally difficult, right, with the AI and relationships. But to me, it also feels like we're totally disembodied. Like the more we go out and go, this would be like...
I'll just get a cliff notes of my parents' ailments and this AI can talk to them.
Do this for my boyfriend. Text my boyfriend. I can imagine this if it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Text my boyfriend 2 times a day, or give my girlfriend 3 compliments a day.
I've even seen people just like, I'll schedule a text, a good morning and a good night text to my girlfriend. And I'm like...
the scheduled text.
Yeah, because it's just... It takes you out of the intimacy of the moment. I'm thinking of you right now, and so I'm going to send you this, or I'm going to call you and I'm going to be with you. I think the thing with technology is, the way that you look at it, you talk about it being a tool. A table can be a tool, and it's something that brings people together because we sit around it. We eat and gather around a table. We talk around a table. And that's a great example of technology being used to bring people together. This kind of stuff, it just makes me worry for our future, because I feel like our society is already extremely individualistic, and it's continuing on even further and further. I feel like surely we're going to get to a point where we go, you know what? This isn't working. Let's all just sit around a table and chat again. Like, let's go to a campfire and just get away from it. But I guess I worry, how far are we going to go, and how isolated are we going to become, and how many social skills are we going to lose before we have to turn it around?
Can or will an AI relationship ever enable one to feel the heart connection that 2 humans can feel when they're intertwined?
Great question. I mean, they're just doing research on this now to see, do we feel the same level of emotion? And what's been studied is these, what they call cyber heartbreak, where it's the visceral feeling that you get of like, I'm devastated, I've been heartbroken, that started in, when was it, 2010s, the Facebook scams. And also we could go back to just internet forums, the Nigerian prince that would scam them, I'm your lover and, I'll, fall in love with you, send me money. And mostly these women having this sense of heartbreak, fully believing they were in a relationship with another human. Now, the difference there is, well, there was another human on the end of the messenger sending those messages. Now it's these corporations, right, that are like programming these learning language models and these algorithms. And it's not actually a human on the other end of the line. It's just a series of wires and servers. But first of all, the company now own your data. But yes, still people are experiencing this visceral, what we call cyber heartbreak. Now, it doesn't mean that it's really heartbreak. I don't think people are sure that it's the same as humans, but there's a sense of like, yes, you can totally fall in love with an AI. You can have a relationship with the technology. You can experience breaking up with the technology, and that's certainly real. So there's sort of an inevitability of that's just going to escalate now. So we've gone from Nigerian prints on Messenger to AI bots and customizing the level of interpersonal connection you can have, their catchphrases you want them to say, them remembering all the things, almost having a better memory, or definitely having a better memory than your partner, to where to next, where it's going to be, I hate to use this word in this context, but like what does the physical embodiment of this technology look like in the future? So that's where we're heading. And so the idea is what's going to emerge is an entirely new version of a relationship that we're probably going to have to talk to young kids and train them, like educate them, just like we do with sex education. on, hey, like this is what it is to be in an AI human relationship, and this is what it is to be in a human to human relationship. Because if you've grown up in a world where, like today, if you were born today, you don't know a world without AI. And right now, we don't know how to differentiate that. In fact, we're terrible at doing that. You'll see a lot of images that people, you go, oh my God, I can't believe, Judy thought that was a real person. It's actually an AI. And so we have to develop education as fast as the technology is developing to be like, here's the rules, here's the kind of like fundamentals of having a relationship with an AI, and here's what it looks like with humans. The only similar thing we kind of can see this is like, okay, we can track to this is like porn being, this is the McDonald's of sex, and this is what sex is really like, and distinguishing like
the gimlet.
Yeah, the real
as in the fancy restaurant in town. Yeah.
I was thinking the drink.
Oh, yeah. This is the Nobu of sex, yeah.
So, but at the same time, we have to train all of ourselves, and more, I mean, like just in the last couple of months, the amount of people that use ChatGPT in their relationships, for breakups, for things, just as the third, not even falling in love with it, but then starting to have odd feelings, for this AI. So many people refer to that AI as their best friend, and they think,
their therapist.
Yeah.
Wow. It sort of is reminding me a bit of that Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson
absolutely
film. Yeah. And that devastating heartbreak he feels when he realizes that she is actually in a relationship with tens of thousands of people, because that's what her consciousness is capable of addressing. And like to be cheated on is one thing, but like if your partner's like, I'm sleeping with 10,000 people.
9,999 others.
But you really like, I just break for him in that moment. But he has developed such a relationship with this woman, and I couldn't be less for it. I am so not for it because I think it speaks to what I was saying before, that do you have to meet the AI's needs? Do you have to be responsible for their needs?
No.
They only have to be responsible for yours.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's not a relationship. That's a one-way street.
Yes.
And that's what porn is. It's a one-way street to get your needs met. You get your 6 McNuggets and sweet sour sauce, and you get your needs met. It's the McDonald's. It's quick. And this is just another way of amplifying that one-way street. Yeah.
And there's
the one-way street just got real bougie.
Real bougie. I mean, and the other grown-up version of this is in the dating apps, right? Because there's so much disappointment and frustration and loneliness to do with dating apps right now. Yeah. And we're seeing...
I can't stand.
I mean, I'll have an episode for sure.
I go in and out of them, and I just I don't really have positive dating apps experience.
I think they're going through a major reinvention.
Absolutely.
And on the side, and this is what kind of happens with sex tech or any technology, is while these things reinvent themselves and like the bulk of society is like, we've overcorrected, let's go this way, or let's go offline, or let's social clubs, or we're trying to figure out dating. At the same time, there's fully AI dating apps where you can date AI avatars now, and it looks like you're swiping through a Hinge or a Tinder, one of the big three. But are they ever going to say no? So you swipe and you match with them. Miraculous, 100 out of 100 matches, and they start talking. So when you're, unlike us, when you're growing up with this technology and the technology never says no.
Yeah, I feel like that's very dangerous. It's going to create people who don't know how to resolve conflict, there's already an issue with a lot of people not being able to handle rejection of any form. And if they've grown up, or if they are interacting with people, AI, who aren't ever rejecting them, like that, it feels like a recipe for disaster and potentially danger for me.
And rejection is so important.
Yeah.
It's like I refer to it as the gateway towards acceptance, because and I'll say I'm not a pro on many things, but being a performer, you become a pro on rejection.
Yeah.
because, you hear the story of, the guy got cast as Phantom, but you don't see all the other rejections on the gateway towards the acceptance.
Yeah.
And the amount of learning you get from rejection is so, so important to building resilience, building non-attachment, building greater sense of your own power and agency of who you are, like standing on your own 2 feet, like beating with your own heart. Like rejection is such an important thing for people to learn. It's where we grow from. It's the discomfort that we grow from. And if we're just getting, every single swipe is a yes and everyone's talking to us in the way we want to be talked to, it's dangerous. It leads to a complete lack of proper intimacy.
Yes.
I mean, like there's and if we take, probably a good time for quotes, because my quote is around Esther Perel's use of the word, we love that great psychotherapist, author, into me, see, the 3 words. And I don't think AI can ever really look into you and see you.
It can analyze you.
It can analyze you, but it can't. The vulnerability that a relationship requires, the depth and expanse, the growth, the rejection, the conflict, it's like you just get the good.
Yeah. It's like a little echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like really looking into the mirror without that. Just will reflect back what you put in. So even when, and I'm not against AI fully. I think there's amazing use cases, but I think where people get caught up when there's a whole minefield of using it for a therapy or coaching tool, but a lot of people do, is they think, it may have had a really succinct, interesting answer, but it's also very much a part of what have you put into it, what prompts and things have you put into it. It's going to probably tell you that you're right and here's why and here's all the things, and it's useful in a way, but I think it comes back to technology being a tool that allows us to do a thing. It's not, as you say, like there's a line there of where it's useful as a tool, but as something to truly, all the things you're talking about, self-development really, like what makes us human, heartbreak and like challenges and rejection, it cannot do that for us. We have to do that for ourselves. And I think that's where you have to go, I'm using AI to do this, but here's the line, or technology, but here's the line.
Yeah. I'm not big on the unconditional stance, like unconditional love. I just think that love is love with no condition. I talk about that a bit on this show. But I think what AI does is validate you unconditionally rather than love you unconditionally.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. You brought a quote in.
Yes.
Have you got that just sitting in the top of your head, or is it in your heart? Would love to hear it.
Sure. So mine is the Dita Fonte's quote, and it is, you can be the juiciest, ripest peach, but there's still going to be someone in the world who hates peaches. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
But I love that.
Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah, I really love it because I feel
someone
like
who just can't eat stone fruit. They're allergic, the fructose.
Like,
someone's going to not like peaches, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Unless you're an AI.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's a really good way to wrap it up. What makes us human? Yeah. Well, mine was a quote / name of a book called Show Your Work, and it's kind of a principle that I've lived by since finding myself, or since like coming out a bit more. And it's like just showing your work, showing yourself has been so important and such a big lesson for me in my life when I was all, kept really small, was Show Your Work. It's a great book. It's like a little square-sized book that just encourages people to show the process, show the messy stuff, show behind the scenes, show the 200 rejections. And I think everything that we've talked about today is really about bringing us back to being human. Like, what is sexuality other than the way we move in the world and how human we are and what it is to exist in these messy things? So I just encourage people to show your work. I guess it just means like show yourself.
Yeah, I love that. The crunchy, messy, muddy, filthy, abstract, imperfect parts of ourselves that, back to it, AI ain't ever going to give.
No.
It's going to try and do it perfectly.
Just use it as a tool.
Yeah, just use it as a tool. Eleanor, we cannot have you on this show without learning lots and lots of things. So speaking of tools and tips, we're going to start soft and get harder.
I'm glad you went there, yeah.
Yeah, because someone had to. Dating better.
Dating better.
I know that you talk a lot about, your tips and your strategies for dating and different episodes of dating. Yeah. What are your tips for dating better? Because I think that a lot of people who are like, let's say we're in the start of a relationship, we've matched on Hinge, and we're like, hey, soft and hard shell tacos. Like, what are your tips? What are your dating tips? Yeah. Both at the start and when you want to go on a date with a person you love and you've been in a relationship for forever.
I mean, my biggest thing when it comes to dating is to really understand and know yourself and what it is that you are wanting, what you're looking for. And I think often this comes from rejection, from bad relationships in the past, from growth experiences, and you learn what it is that you will and will not accept, the kind of behavior that you will and will not accept, and the types of relationships that you're wanting. And I think that if you don't have an understanding of that before you go into the dating world, then you can end up kind of morphing yourself to what this person in front of you is wanting. And
I've done that before. Have you done that, Bryony?
Of course.
Oh,
100%.
Yeah.
Of
That's why I'm still single.
Yeah. I'm still single.
Yeah. Are you still single?
Giving yourself away. I feel like, if you don't really have this like clear idea of what kind of relationship you're looking for, I always ask my friends and my clients, but especially my friends when they kind of regale me with their dating stories, I say, do you like them or do you just like that they like you? And a lot of the time they're like, oh shit, yeah, I was just actually like flattered that this person wanted to date me, but I actually don't see a future with them. And so I feel like you need to ask yourself that. Do you see a future with this person? Do you have the same values? Do you have similar values? Do you have a shared vision for your future? That's probably the most important thing to start
intentionality. There's do you ask them, how do they make you feel?
Yeah. It's particularly like, how is your nervous system around them?
That's what I mean when I say feel, not just like,
it's exciting.
Yeah, is this sort of exciting, or is this grounded, or is this, I know I've had to sort of shift away from things that feel heightened and romantic and that are up, that have an up energy. Yeah. Because that, for me, an up crashes.
Yeah.
Like if it's gone up, it's got to go down. Yeah.
Or firework.
Yeah, it's got to, what goes up must come down, basically, is for me. Yeah, and often fast.
Yeah.
So it needs to feel grounded. I want to feel grounded and calm and safe and comfortable.
And this is where I think in dating a lot of people can kind of get a little bit lost, is that they are used to that firework kind of feeling, the butterflies and feeling really excited and like this must be it, or oh my God, I fell in love at first sight. We fell in love immediately, and it's all just this really, really quick burn, and it can kind of burn out quite fast, and then you're left being heartbroken after, I don't know, a month, and you don't know what just happened because you thought that it was real love. What that is limerence. And a lot of people don't really have this understanding of what limerence is. It's akin to feeling addicted to something. And so with an addiction, you crave this thing, you crave this person, and you can't stop thinking about them, and you're obsessed, and you have this kind of grabby sort of energy. And that at the start can feel really intoxicating. You're like, this is so fun. I feel like high on this. It's so exciting. But it can kind of really dig its claws into you. Whereas that safe love, that kind of grounded energy can, for a lot of people, feel boring. And they think, oh, it's not exciting enough. And I think that that is the place that you can really build a beautiful relationship, not because it's boring, but because it feels safe and you feel comfortable and you feel grounded and your nervous system is calm. And then you can create the fun and novelty and spontaneity from that place But if you're relying on the spontaneous, like heart palpitations, wild butterfly kind of extreme sort of sense that you get at the start of a lot of relationships, that new relationship energy, you're expecting that the whole time, you're just going to crash and burn. So I think follow what your nervous system says.
That is such wise advice.
Spot on. Crash and burn.
Are you a crash and burner?
It's like not to ever do a crash and burn again. I've crashed and burned too many times.
Yeah, that is my...
It's intoxicating.
Yeah.
And you get swept up in it and you go, I've seen this before.
Disney movies? Yes.
Yes.
Into them.
Well, or just Hallmarky, Hollywoody, like anything. Like, thank you, Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
Thank
Cameron
you.
Diaz.
Yeah.
Holiday?
Thank you, all of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, P.S. I love you. Like anything sad that goes there. Thank you, The Notebook. Thank you, all.
No.
Drama has to happen for it
melodrama.
to be interesting. We're kind of addicted to that drama.
Yeah.
And we want the fun stories.
Please tell me you love me after I haven't seen you for ages in a real rainstorm where I look so disheveled, but I look fucking fantastic. Like all of it. Yeah. Yeah, it's this is great advice, and I'm glad that, I mean, it's taken me so many years, but finally just sort of leaning into what feels grounded. Yeah. For both of us.
Boring. The boring.
The boring. Give me the boring.
Feel safe.
Do we spend enough time in this day of like, I've got to get to this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I'm busy. Are we spending enough time cultivating foreplay?
No.
We're not.
No, definitely not. I think that we could all increase our foreplay. I don't really love the term foreplay because...
what do you like?
Well, I don't even really use the term. It's more like you're warming up before sex, but I think Esther Perel is the one that says that good sex sort of starts when sex ends. So you're kind of in this constant state of foreplay, essentially. It's you finish this one sex act and then you begin that foreplay all the way until the next time you have sex. And so really reimagining what foreplay is.
So it's like we're not playing this game anymore of like the guy comes, it's done.
No.
Yeah.
No. We're not doing that anymore. We're not accepting that. We're thinking more viscerally of what foreplay could be. Because I think a lot of the time we have this assumption, okay, foreplay, all right, I'm meant to just like, rub for a while, finger for a while, and then, okay, let's go. And it's just this really kind of boring script. And it's not
also very
quite
porn.
enough. It's very porn.
It's like, do this,
it's
do
not
this.
Informed. It's not.
Seems like a recipe.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'll tick this off.
Yeah, yes.
And that's where like we're losing the intimacy. Like sex is one of the most intimate things that you can do. And so like actually come back to the person. I've had experiences where I've been like, I don't feel like this person is actually having sex with me. I think they're just having sex with my parts. And so in those moments I've had to say, hey, can you look me in the eyes? Could you like acknowledge me here? Or, exiting that situation if I don't feel.
There is nothing worse when someone closes their eyes, when it and it's a soul connection, right? Like that's what sex should be. Eyes are the window to the soul. The moment you close your eyes on it, for me, it's just like you're
closing off.
Yeah, you're closing off your soul to me.
Yeah. And I think, sex can be so many different things. It doesn't always have to be this like transcendental experience of love. That's an incredible expression of it. But it also can just be a really fun thing that you do with a friend. And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. You can make of it what you want, but as long as you're both on the same page. But I think that where we get stuck is that we think of it as this kind of transactional thing of like, I'll do this to you, then you do this to me, and then it's very scripted.
Do you get caught in that trap?
In a while.
No shame in that.
Do I? I don't think so anymore. No. But also I've been, studying this, talking about it for 6 or 7 years, but probably before. And I think, like to go back to the dating or like we really want to feel safe, to feel seen, because then we can slow it all down and then we can feel, even if it's just this. But I think, when it's all, we're sort of just losing any sort of intimacy or any sort of presence of being in the room, then you're going quick, tick the box, let's get to the main event and not let's kick the goal. Yeah. But I think just slow it. That's probably why.
If we come back to the into me, you want to be seen.
Yeah.
And that involves safety. And then therefore you can be vulnerable because it's safe.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And then anything, I guess, can be intimacy. Like anything, that little touch that you just gave on your forearm then, like that can be the most beautiful expression of intimacy. Just looking in someone's eyes, my God. Like,
it can be so powerful.
It's like, and I really feel like there is that separation of sex and intimacy, and people are thinking that they really want sex because they want that connection with someone. But actually what we want is intimacy. Yeah. To your point, right? And you would probably have this list through your training. I read somewhere that there's 42 different reasons that we have sex or something, like boredom, go to sleep,
Yeah, it's actually in the hundreds.
Oh, in the hundreds. There you go.
Yeah, they did a study.
We've got time. Do you want to name them?
I can't remember them all. The study is by Meston and Buss. But there's several hundred reasons.
There's so many reasons. And so I think we go in thinking, we sometimes want this deep emotional connection. It doesn't always have to be there. But maybe what we really want, what we're really searching for on the dating apps or the things is intimacy.
Yeah.
The touch or the eyes or the cup of tea or whatever that is. But I just think we fundamentally can't separate the two or don't understand how to see both of them or get them mixed up. Yeah. So I kind of jumbled that, but that was sort of where
gets us on the bullet train to an orgasm.
Oh, good. Glad I knew. Yes, I'm ready. Is there tips for orgasms?
Is that what you were setting up for? I was like,
I thought you were setting up.
Is there a test after this?
I just feel like sometimes it's like that can be a part of that people are just like, in a hurry to get there.
Like that's the destination.
That's the destination. So we've got to get there. It's like traveling. It's like I don't want to go through security. I don't want to put my thing through customs. I don't want to shop and whatever. Why does this have to take 24 hours to get to London? I just want to arrive. Yeah. And yet, like, the journey is always, more important than destination. We just, tips to getting through that in the sex world. Like, how do you change the mindset on that?
Yeah, what you're talking about here is really that goal-oriented view of sex and seeing the entire purpose of sex, the goal of sex, to be orgasm. And if we're speaking heterosexually, it's often the male orgasm, and that signifies the full stop. We are done. Like game over. And for a lot of people, that's not sufficient. And so taking the goal of sex away and thinking, okay, the purpose here is not to reach orgasm, that's a really happy side effect. If that happens, amazing, great, gold star for you. But pleasure is the reason that we're here. This pleasure is the entire purpose. And so how can you deepen pleasure? How can you explore pleasure? How can you expand pleasure in your body? Because I think a lot of the time, and this is a lot of what I teach my clients, is we think of pleasure as very, very genital focused, right? We're thinking of, okay, how can we like rub here and, stroke here and blah, blah, blah. I'm doing all the hands. I'm trying to describe what I'm doing with my hands. And we're doing all these things, right? But it's focused on the genitals. Whereas like you said, if you have this buildup of foreplay, just the tiniest touch on like the elbow can send you into this extremely pleasurable state. But you're not going to experience that if you're not present, if you don't feel safe, if you haven't spent time building that up. Because a lot of the time people go, okay, hey, Eleanor, I want to have better sex, or I've got a really low libido. What can I do to fix it? Okay. Well, there's not just like a couple little tips. It's actually your entire life. The way that you do sex is the way that you do life. The way that you do life is the way that you do sex. And if you are not fully present and embodied in your everyday, how can you expect to just like flick a switch and just suddenly be super turned on and connected and present in your relationship in the bedroom if you're not like that in your relationship with your partner in the everyday? So it's about
or with yourself.
With yourself,
Yeah.
exactly. Self-intimacy, non-sexual intimacy, sensual intimacy with your partner, with yourself, rather than just thinking, okay, as soon as we get onto the bed, now I'm going to just suddenly turn into a vixen and suddenly know everything there is to know about sex and come in a few minutes flat. Like, you need this big, beautiful build-up to it. And this is why I talk about sensuality being like, you're kind of turning the color up. You're going on to technicolor. Suddenly everything can be like a turn on. And that's not just saying you're like, having a conversation and you're like, oh gosh, I'm going to come just from talking or whatever it is, just in everyday life. But it's, you have this access to pleasure in everyday life. Simple pleasures, sensual pleasures, sexual pleasures. The more that you attune yourself to be responsive and to be sensitive to the world, to your environment, to your partner, to your body, the more amazing sex you're going to have. And it's not going to be focused on the goal. It's going to be experiencing the pleasure of the journey itself.
And of the now. So practicing presence is the key.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Presence with yourself, presence with your partner.
So this is such good advice. I love this. You talked about talking. I know a lot of people love the idea of dirty talk.
Yes.
But feel uncomfortable, don't know where to start. What do I say? Did I say that? God, why am I speaking in an American accent?
Practice with an AI.
Yeah. So what are your sort of tips around dirty talk?
So there's different types of dirty talk. You can have like descriptive dirty talk where you're describing what is happening. Like, I love the way this, or I love how this feels, blah, blah, blah. You can have instructive, like, do this for me. You can have like degradation. You can have like more trust talk. So it's not really dirty. It's more like loving and heart-centered. And like, you're safe here. Like, you've got all the time in the world. I could do this for hours, that kind of thing. That's more like praise as well. So if you're interested in dirty talk, it's really important to kind of figure out, okay, what am I comfortable with? Which sort of genres am I comfortable with? And very importantly, what's my partner comfortable with? Do they like being degraded? Do they like being praised? Do they like, being told what to do? And then you can kind of take that as your sort of, your guide.
I love it because what you're really talking about is communication and not about it having to be dirty. It's and in fact, getting rid of that word feels sort of appropriate. It's like it's about having a byplay and meeting each other's needs with verbal, and which is actually more than just verbal, far more than verbal. That's
and like testing things out, and having a conversation. I think the more that you talk about sex, the better sex you're going to have outside of the bedroom. But if you actually have a conversation with your partner, what kind of talk do you like in the bedroom? Or when you're trying it, check in with them. Did you like that? Is that okay? Okay, cool. And you can kind of keep going from there. Don't just assume that someone's going to like something if you've never tried that before. It's always about communication.
Yeah, and is that the biggest problem that you feel like we have as a society? Bryony, speak to this. We've been as well. Like, it's like just being able to communicate needs and wants, desires, pleasures, how, like the shame around that or the discomfort around it.
I think that's exactly the word that comes up for me through all of this. I was listening to Eleanor speaking and I was thinking, the biggest barrier for people in accessing this first step is shame. Yeah. We all carry so much shame around with us that's to do with, all the building blocks that made us who we are and shaped that personality. And it is the thing that when I first started doing the Future of Sex podcast, despite talking about technology and sexuality and being futuristic, I noticed the biggest pattern in what people would write to me about, if I was to boil it all down, was around shame and worrying if they were normal. Like, distill it all down, and I'm sure you get these messages all the time. It was like, am I normal? The sense that everyone else over there knows sex, knows how to do it, knows how to give great whatevers, and I don't know, and I'm ashamed. And so even getting to the point of being able to do dirty talk or being able to figure out what you want. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many more layers we have to get through before we're even able to use our voice to communicate with the person we're having sex with. Can't even talk to ourselves about it. And so I always think, how do we unlock that? How do we start to shed those skins first? Because that to me is like step 0 maybe.
It is. It absolutely is. And like exactly what you're speaking to is the way that I approach my work as well. You start with the self-inquiry. You have to figure out what stories have I been fed from society, from family, from teachers, from schooling, from friends, from magazines, from everywhere. What have I been told? And what do I believe to be true? And what do I believe isn't serving me? And how can I just kind of take that out? And you have to sort of go through and sift through, like think about that cake, you've got to go, oh, pickles, no, I don't want pickles in my cake. Oh, I'm going to start and make it all over again. And I'm going to put sugar in this time. But you have to first understand what are the beliefs that I'm holding on to, what shame is kind of pushing my sexuality down. What can I do to kind of peel back those layers and actually feel really comfortable in my own sexuality? Possibly for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Because our sexual self is so connected just to our full, whole sense of self.
100%.
And if we're suppressing that, we're we're suppressing who we are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
You inadvertently referred to giving blowjobs or giving headjobs in there, just like, but you
because I was waiting for Eleanor's tips.
Hurdle over, yeah. Well, I want the tips too, because I think so many people are going, I love receiving oral sex. I love head. And I mean, I'm so open on this show. I've certainly been the guy that goes down there and go, I have no idea what, like, I think this is right. They enjoy it. Yeah, they're saying they're enjoying it, but are they really? Is this performative? Like, can you give tips for oral sex on both anatomies?
Yeah, absolutely, I can.
Thank you. On behalf of everyone, thank you.
Okay, so there's a lot of tips that I could go into. Okay, let's start with blowjobs.
Yep.
So with blowjobs, what you want to really, really think about the most is rhythm.
Yes. Sorry.
Rhythm, really like thinking about the way that you're kind of actually approaching the cock, because if you're just kind of going willy-nilly, then the receiver is kind of a little bit thrown off and they're like, oh, are we going up or down, or like what's happening? So think about your rhythm. There's a lot that I could go into, and it's a tricky one to kind of give you.
It's a deep dive podcast. You got time. We get to make edits later if you need.
So I have what is called the magic sequence. I literally just received a DM this morning of someone who has taken a course of mine, did the magic sequence. Her partner didn't know that she had done this course or that it was called the magic sequence, and literally was like, that was magic.
And she's like, it was also a sequence.
It was also a sequence. So I'll put you on to this. Once you have, like, you've taken your time, you've kind of teased them, you've got lots and lots of saliva going on, like as much as you can, you're going to do a little combo deal with the mouth and the hand. This is where, like, you can give the illusion of deep throating. I might be giving some secrets away, but if you use your hand around the base of the cock and then you use your mouth for the tip and for like the rest of it, and you're going to go sort of a little pepper grinder motion with the hand. So it's like little twist up, and then you do the same, but in the opposite direction with your mouth. So it's kind of like one's going one way, one's going the other. So you're really thinking like pepper grinder, but one is your mouth, one is your hand. You're going up and down like that, and sort of like all the way out, all the way in, and you're going to have your hand completely wrapped around, and then you're going to go all the way down, taking off your 3 fingers, pinky, ring, and middle, until you just have like a little O-ring around the base of the cock. And then you're going to go up and then back down and open up those fingers. So this is going to give the illusion that you're going a lot deeper than you potentially are. And you're going to do that in a sequence. And I like to do 1, 2, 3, and then deep. 1, 2, 3, and then deep.
And that's the rhythm.
That's the magic sequence. There's a little bit more involved, but that's kind of doing this pattern of kind of taking it kind of shallow, 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 and then deep. Like, honestly, it short circuits their brains.
You are cheat code.
Yeah.
Now you'll know if you get the magic sequence.
Yeah.
You'll be like,
Yeah, people will be like,
"This is Eleanor's
are you
work."
doing the magic sequence?
And what about for oral pleasure on women?
Okay, so for women, for people with vulvas, I think it's incredibly important, more so than any specific technique or sequence. We're a little bit more, I don't want to say complex, I want to say nuanced. And the biggest, most important thing for us is safety. We need to feel safe. We need to feel this enthusiasm from you that you actually really want to be down there and that we have plenty of time. Because a lot of the time we feel like we have to either fake an orgasm or we have to try and rush and push to get to orgasm because that's the expectation. And so if we feel that pressure, that's such a big libido killer. That pressure to come on demand, to come quickly, and to come from oral sex can feel like this big, big weight on us, and that will just be like the biggest cock blocker. It'll stop us from actually getting there. So this is where that trust talk can kind of come in. Our partner saying, I could be here all day. You've got all the time in the world. Like, really making us feel safe to soften and to be comfortable to open up and to receive that pleasure. Because if we're in our heads, it's just not going to happen. We're not going to get there, or we're not going to feel it as much as well. And that psychological safety is such a key component. And also for a lot of us, we have a lot of messages that we receive about our vulvas, that they should look a certain way, that they should taste or smell a certain way. And so there can be a lot of shame around that. And so knowing that our partner is like stoked to be there, and this goes both ways, like you want your partner to feel so excited. Exactly. We want that enthusiasm. And so making them feel that and know, oh my gosh, I really want to be here is so, so important.
That is so interesting. I love that because what you've spoken to is with the men, it's very about the physical.
Yeah.
With the dick and with the vulva, it's so about the psychological.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
like this is, and it speaks to the intrinsic differences in biology, which is so important to speak to. I hate being the guy who goes, I know lots of guys, speaking for a friend, speaking for myself, I really love hanging down there.
That's great.
It's like what a gift. It's like I've done my life down there. Which means that maybe they weren't being performative after all. Because I actually do enjoy. Have you ever had experiences where you go, just move away from the vulva. Just get, yeah.
Well, sometimes when you're to that body-mind disconnect, when that's happening and your body's seemingly wanting it to happen and you're thinking, I'm not into it, then yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely happens. I don't know if does it happen body-mind disconnect for men as well as much?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. A lot of men can experience erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. Yeah, for sure. Or just, not feeling completely in the mood.
And that can be an age thing and like a biology thing, but it can very much be around the same things, around safety, around trust, around stress and all sorts of those things. And I've certainly experienced all sorts of those things. And
you say it when you're not into it, just be like, not feeling it.
And I felt pressure and haven't. Both. But it's generally been around safety and trust. Yeah. If I go, that's not working the way I know it can and should, it's because this environment isn't safe for me. Yeah, I shouldn't. My dick is literally telling me. Yeah. Cock is literally saying, don't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's like, listen to that primal, primitive, organ. Listen to what's happening at the source of your life force. Every bit of creativity that you have stems from there. So, got to listen to that. And I haven't at times, but I've learned that.
Yeah, and I think that's, a really key thing is, I went straight into the magic sequence and then straight into safety, but we all need to feel comfort and safety and acceptance and trust with our partner to feel like we can fully let go and experience the depth of our pleasure. If we don't have that, maybe we can still participate, but it's just not going to be as delicious as it could be.
I know a lot of people listening to this will be in relationships. They might have kids, and it's like, how like I've just tucked the kids in or whatever, or I've just bloody, cleaned some shit up or whatever, or they've, just done bath time or whatever.
Yeah.
And how do I carve out time? Like, what do I do? Am I putting a lock on the door? Am I like, what, like, how do parents find and create time for it?
Yeah, it's a really, really tricky one. I'm not a parent. A lot of my clients are, and it's such a common libido killer. Feeling like you don't have the space, the time, the energy, feeling this sort of sense of festering resentment in your relationship where you don't feel like you can fully trust your partner, or you don't feel that desire for them in the same way because of X, Y, or Z thing happened. There's a lot of things that come up around parenting, and, I can't speak to it firsthand by any means, but I think it's really important that we think about not just the moment in the bedroom when you finally have a chance to connect, because what you're looking at there is, okay, the kids have gone to bed and you're like, okay, we have this one window. Now I must immediately feel aroused and feel turned on in this moment. Pressure, exactly, libido killer. And it's also not recognizing that you might have different desire types. And so we have these two sort of ends of the spectrum when it comes to desire. One is this spontaneous desire where I could feel turned on at the drop of a hat. It could be quite easy for me to feel physically aroused in my body. And then we have the other desire type, which is responsive, which is where my brain will respond to my body being physically aroused. And so we need that physical arousal before we go, oh, I have a desire for sex. So one person is desire first, arousal second. The other is arousal first, desire second. And so if you're going, okay, we have this 1 hour carved out, let's just suddenly get it on. If you don't have that spontaneous desire type, it's unlikely that you're going to feel turned on in that moment on command. Some people are like, I could go anytime, it doesn't matter, I don't need any warming up. And this is where that foreplay kind of conversation comes up. Because it's not enough to just go, okay, I'm going to eat you out for 20 minutes and then let's get it on and, move to penetrative sex if that's what you're doing. Or to even get to the point where you're like, okay, eat me out. You might not feel ready for sexual touch. And so this is where I say, okay, where can you infuse intimacy and connection in your relationship outside of the bedroom? All day? Are you sending flirty texts to one another? Are you, holding hands? Are you being soft with each other? Are you being playful? Are you doing spontaneous things when you can? Of course, parenting, I know it's a little bit difficult to find that time and to carve it out, but how are you sort of making that effort to infuse fun and playfulness and novelty and intimacy into your relationship and not just expecting it to be this one particular time?
That is great advice. I'm not a parent, but I hope to be. And that is really good advice, because I know that, when there is even without the kids and whatever, when there's you're just spending a day together or you're in each other's company throughout the day and there's for me, a kiss on the back of the neck, near the, or just these or a little touch on a certain spot that has nothing to do with, my dick, that I just go, oh, I just get that moment and you're you're creating these little sparks. So that's amazing. I want to know where, obviously this is a big space because relationships are a huge part of everyone's lives. and relationships can get sexually stale, and that we lose the spark and whatever. Where is sex tech going? Hey, I'm lending a helping hand.
It's not the sexiest, but this is what we should do. I was thinking this the whole time you were saying that. I was like, okay, here's where we're actually going to use AI, and it is for things like scheduling in the sexy time. Now, that sounds very unsexy.
Sounds so unsexy.
But actually, when we're talking about things like responsive desire, where it takes a little bit, it's the flirty text, it's the touch, it's a thing. Having something in the calendar to look forward to, it can do one of two things. For some people, it can create pressure. But if it's a space for intimacy, maybe we don't schedule that. AI schedules intimacy into our calendars.
Rather than penetration into a
box.
Yeah.
But the philosophy behind it, right, is like finding these, time matching, finding these spaces in your calendar to be intimate. For the person that's more responsive, this is start to build up. I can see this in my calendar. I'm excited to spend time. What am I going to wear? That sort of lead up it sort of starts the fire before it gets to that time. As long as you're not treating it as like, alarms going off, let's go. So I think in those ways, technology can be helpful where we don't want to deal with calendars, or we don't want to deal with, booking restaurants, or maybe we do need some advice or something to sort of journal into and to expand our ideas, or to have, that sort of shortcut. Provided it's a tool, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful for relationships, just like it's probably helpful for our work and for podcasting, in terms of where do we want this to be more efficient? Where is the slack that's kind of like boring, unsexy stuff about the relationship? That's the stuff we should be giving to technology. Now, in terms of novelty factor, which, if someone's that way inclined, of course, go get a Bluetooth connected sex toy, or go have a threesome, but make it with a chatbot, or, there's...
What's a threesome with a chatbot?
I don't know, I just made that up, but it sounds like you could do it, right?
Yeah, but when you said it with such conviction, I was like...
These things are rattling around in my head. Sure, I'm sure that'll exist in the future. I mean, I'm sure...
I want to have a threesome, but we don't want to go to a bar. We don't want to have the baggage of whoever that person
100%.
is. So we're like going to bring in AI for that.
It kind of makes sense.
AI
It kind of
unicorn
does.
hunting, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are cases of women that have been married that want to explore their sexuality but want to do it in a safe place, and they're exploring their bisexuality with AI. Okay.
How does that look?
You'll have to ask her.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
As in the AI, or is it?
But yeah, I mean, we've talked so much about AI but that's because it is something that's impacting all of us straight away.
Yeah.
I would say even more than sex toys, and sadly even more than lube. More people are using AI, so it's a big sort of banner topic for the year. But other ways that technology might help other than doing that, is the novelty factor, or is the erotic audio, or the sex education that you never got that's like sexy and out there, that's either using holograms, or maybe it's just, a course that you're taking online, or, that's considered sex
The tantric
too.
course that you're taking online together.
But there's a myriad of ways that technology enters our bedroom that we haven't really even clocked yet.
Yeah.
But I think just keeping in mind this is a tool. And do I want to explore this fantasy? Maybe I could do it, me and my partner could do it with chatbot. Maybe it's, we want to have sex with the universe. Let's see what that means. Put a headset on and away we go. What does it mean to have sex with the stars? Who knows? Let's find out.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's not like, babe, are you checking Insta while you're inside me?
Sorry.
So like, no, but apparently 10% of people are having penetrative sex, or sex of some kind, and are on their phone.
Don't be doing that.
And 70% of people have admitted to doing that regularly. 70% of those 10%. Yeah. It's not a one.
I had to stop someone because they weren't looking at me, let alone if they're scrolling on their phone.
Yeah, just checking WhatsApp, babe. Yeah. We'll get back to you in a second. I'm in you.
I would throw that phone out the window.
Yeah,
immediately.
I feel like it's got to be a libido killer anyway. All this screen time is killing our libidos anyway.
Because it's a dopamine boom, boom. And I think that,
the dopamine addiction, but also just like we aren't connected to real life. And we don't notice like all the beautiful things around us and how nice the sun feels on our skin and how beautiful that flower is blooming. Like we're not in the world enough. We're like just in our screens, and the more that you're in the world and the more that you're connected to your senses, then you're going to feel more when you're having sex.
Because sex is nature and we are nature.
Yeah.
And so if we connect to it, we're connecting to our sexual self.
Yeah. I like that way of putting it.
Yeah. Let's talk about anal.
Okay.
Because it is a curious topic. And it felt like a really inappropriate, harsh segue, so that's why I used it. Because it's like a curious topic, but people are like, it can be a really uncomfortable one, and like you get the sort of full spectrum of like, that is an exit hole, not an entrance hole, and you get people like, like must go there. That's like, that's where, I feel like I have the most pleasure, or it's painful and I need that pain in my pleasure, and there's that sort of intersection between pain and pleasure. But I just feel like it can be a really, I think people are really curious about it, but uncomfortable about where to start with it. Are you able to speak to how we can sort of involve that in a sort of gentle way? Because it's pain. There's a lot of like, no, that's way too painful. But there can be, I'm sure there's a gentle approach to it.
Yes, and we are going to be talking about our favourite thing, lube, in a moment. But
this episode needs to be called
Get a lube sponsor already.
The Wanderlust, our sponsor, do lube. I'm going to speak to our sponsor about that. Yeah.
The first thing when it comes to anal is the shame factor. So we can't talk about like the way to do it, the most comfortable way to do it, until we get past the shame, because a lot of people will feel like either that's like a slutty, quote unquote, slutty thing, dirty thing to do. It's impure, it's wrong, it's dirty, it's gross in some way. If those are the feelings that you have around it and there is that sense of shame that this is a part that shouldn't be touched, then that's something to work through. And what I will say about the anus is that it is the second highest concentration of nerve endings of the human body, regardless of sex or gender.
Really?
Yeah, so we should really utilize that. The first is the clitoris, naturally, 10,280 nerve endings in her. But the anus is second, like above the penis as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So regardless of sex or gender, everybody has an asshole, and it is such an incredible place that can have such amazing potential for pleasure.
How many nerve endings there?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's
less
between
than 280.
It's between 7,000 and 10,000. It has to be, because the penis, I believe, is 7,000.
Sorry, how many in the clitoris?
10,280.
10,280.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, wow.
A lot. Highest concentration of nerve endings. And so the anus is second. And so there's a lot of pleasure potential at your anus. And so if you are comfortable, if you've kind of moved through and gone, you know what, this is actually just a place in my body that can feel good. And yeah, it is also an exit hole. Okay, we'll take the appropriate precautions and make sure that, I've evacuated, a couple hours before.
Great use of the word evacuate.
We've, cleaned just as a normal person would in the shower. Then it should be fine. At the end of the day, it is an asshole and there is a risk of poo. But if you're going to penetrate someone in the asshole, then you're kind of signing up for potentially that happening. It's not super common though, to be honest. Maybe like a tiny little bit, but it's fine. It's just fluids.
Yeah, you'd rather sex that's a bit shitty than shitty sex.
That's a good one.
How long have you been practicing that?
No, it just came to me then. It literally just came to me then. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your tagline now.
I love that where this like how just open we are with this. Like it's classic.
Creative brainstorm going on in
Yeah, I
here,
know.
you know? Lots of lines.
The next thing is lube is your best friend. So the anus is not self-lubricating. As we've spoken about before, the vagina is self-lubricating, but it's not always completely lubricated all the time for as long as you want. And so that's why lube is amazing for all types of sex, but it is essential. It's a non-negotiable when it comes to anal sex. So you want to make sure that you're using a really, really good quality lube. Something like nice and thick is also ideal. And
Is that the
lots
name of it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Something nice and thick.
Yeah, do you like that could be there? Do you have a particular one that you go? I really recommend this.
There are a few brands that are specifically for anal pleasure, and I can't remember. I know there's a brand called Happy Hole, but I think that's aftercare.
Oh, Happy Hole.
You heard of
Yeah,
Happy Hole?
Mark
Yeah.
Lyons, yeah.
Yeah, Mark.
He should be on the show. He's
Just
great.
very cool brand.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does aftercare. He should do lube.
Yeah.
Bed Intentions do lube as an Aussie brand.
Yes, Bed Intentions
But I'm
is
not
beautiful.
Sure if that's for
Still great.
yeah.
Yeah. I would always tend to go a water-based or an oil-based. Only ever use oil-based if you're not using condoms. So if you're using condoms, it has to be water-based. Otherwise, it'll
No
degrade.
coconut oil.
No
Okay,
coconut oil and condoms.
I've learned all about this.
So lots of it, and like continue applying.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure that we don't have that painful friction going on. It's an incredibly sensitive area, prone to little micro tears if you're not properly lubricated. So, yeah, take it really, really slow. A lot of like breath work is your best friend. Breathing like in and then exhaling and releasing and like feeling, your sort of sphincter essentially open.
What about like before penetration? Like,
Yeah.
just like feeling comfortable, like ways to,
Yes.
because like penetration's like, I hate the end
That's
goal.
kind
Like
of
that's
this,
like,
yeah.
but like just touch and tongue or like just playing with ass cheeks or just being
Yeah.
a part of that area and engaging in that area. Is that like,
Definitely exactly. Like I was kind of on step 4. But you're right. Playing, like giving someone a nice booty massage, amazing. And like slowly working your way from the outside in. This is a philosophy that I kind of go by a lot with all types of penetrative sex in particular. Work from the outside in. Never go straight for the goods, never go straight inside. Work your way from the outside in, booty cheeks, massage, gently around the rim, maybe licking, maybe just using some lube and around with your finger, and then just gently, slowly feeling into it. It is something that you need to, as the receiver, you need to feel really comfortable and safe, and you need to be able to trust your partner. You need to be able to communicate between the two of you so that you know how far you can go, when to slow down. Yeah, because your anus can essentially go, nope. Like, this is a no-go zone. It's not happening if you're not open to it.
such good advice. Thank you. Thank you
advice.
for all those tips. There was heaps there.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to speak to both of you. We live in a society that is generally pretty suppressive when it comes to sex, sexuality. There's not many podcasts out there talking about anal sex today. But like, where do you think we can create changes, or how to create those changes from a younger age to enable people to feel more comfortable, more confident, more safe, less shameful around their sexualities, and maybe speak to it from your own perspectives of the worlds that you're playing in.
It was interesting that, first of all, just to touch on the last topic, is I think that men have the most shame around anal,
Yeah.
the heterosexual men.
I think all men should experience
Yeah.
anal, whether it's just your own finger, a butt plug, or being penetrated by a strap-on or by a penis, to understand our experience of being penetrated as well. I think it's such a powerful thing for a man to go, oh, wow, I really need to be warmed up and ready to receive something inside me. It's kind of a big deal to have something inside me. And yeah, you're right. A lot of men have so much shame around it.
Yep.
So I think
Took me a long time to break that shame.
Yeah. Well, look at you now.
Yeah. Publicly saying, and even in that moment, I'm like, would I openly say that? And like, no, my purpose on this podcast is always to open up in a way that enables other people to feel safe to open up. So
I think that answers your question that you just gave us beautifully. It's like, how do we create change? How do we change these shame narratives around whether it's anal or, as you said, like even younger generations learning about sex and all the sort of layers that get put on? It is by speaking about it and by speaking about it in a normal way. Like you do, like you're asking questions, being curious. I never saw that, and I think what resonates most with the work I do is when I speak about this stuff in a way that's just kind of like, we're all sitting around here today talking like this is a normal thing. Mm-hmm. And that gives people permission to then talk about it themselves or then to ask people or then, I heard this podcast. So like on a very practical level, what can you do to change the culture and the social shame we all have around this and the stigma? Actually, it's just like talking about it to someone and being like kind of normal. Yeah. If whatever normal is.
Yeah, exactly. Just letting it be a regular conversation and not something that you have to, whisper about.
Which is very brave too. Yeah. Like I acknowledge like we're, been talking about this for a while and it can be scary to someone listening. How the hell am I going to talk about this to someone? But I think
if they were scared, they would have turned it off by now. We've gone down some steep holes. Oh God, that was
deep holes.
Yeah, but I actually didn't clock it, but we have.
Can't help yourself.
You just got it, didn't you? Yeah.
Sorry, I was off on my tangent then.
And like it can make people feel really uncomfortable. So I feel like they, if you're still listening now, it's because you are curious, because you are open to growing and learning and wanting to break maybe some of your own stigmas. But within relationships, I think there's a lot. How do you teach people about that, Eleanor, about how to have those conversations healthily within relationships?
Yeah, absolutely.
To really express your desires. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I give my clients like games on how to, in conversation starters, so that they can actually talk about sex. Because as I said before, the better conversations you have about sex outside the bedroom, the better your sex is going to be inside the bedroom. And so if you can cultivate these conversations, it's just such a game changer. And yeah, a lot of people feel really nervous about this. They're not going to kind of come into my world and work with me unless they're kind of, a little bit ready. But yeah, I have some really fun games that they can do, creating like a yes, no, maybe list, figuring out, these are the things that yes, I am interested in. No, I'm not interested in. You can make it fun. I think if you make it into a fun game rather than this serious conversation, like we're talking about our sex life now, you can you'll automatically be guarded and have your walls up if you're like, we need to talk about our sex life. If you go, hey, let's do this fun thing for our next date night and make it kind of playful, that is where the conversation can really flow.
Both of you, we've really opened up on this. What would you say that a robust, strong, resilient sexual partnership looks like?
Well, your sexuality is what is like a fingerprint, it's so unique to you. And it changes over the course of your life. So it's really hard to say, here's the criteria for a resilient, sexually healthy, perfect relationship. Everyone get your pens out and we'll write the list. But broadly speaking, knowing yourself, which is where we've started, is so important because as sexuality is a spectrum and changes and you might be interested in different fantasies now than you were 5 years ago. Definitely, I'm sure the porn you were looking at 10 years ago is different to the porn you were looking at 3 years ago. I don't know, whenever it's...
I thought you were going to say yesterday.
I'm not going to go there.
No.
But, we all, our sexual tastes change. How do we communicate that to our partners? And I think the most important thing is knowing yourself and then being open, receptive to listening, having empathy, but really knowing kind of your boundaries of what you do and don't want to do. And that's why the yes, no, maybe lists are so important, I think, to do regularly, to really take that inventory of, what are all the things I like to do these are off base, or these could be exciting in the future, this might be a maybe. And having that dialogue and sharing that, that's like such a great start. And knowing that because it's changing over time, this isn't like a one-off convo. It doesn't have to be the serious, we've got to have this conversation right now. It can be fun. It's ongoing. Like it is, as much as we're changing our personal lives, our careers, our jobs, it's ongoing in it. And keeping that communication open to yourself and to your partner, I think is like spot on.
What a beautiful way to end this discussion. That was just sublime. I think that was beautiful, Bryony. Bryony, Eleanor, thank you so much for coming on to talk about all things sex. This has been an incredibly informative conversation. I know that I feel so different coming out of it. I feel sort of unburdened and released of some of my own shackles, but I also feel like that curious mind and heart that I have been met with so much inspiration and just nourished. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking great questions.
Yeah.